helped out with each other whenever they could.
What can you actually tell us about the naming of the style, Shotokan?
Interesting. Okay, Funakoshi, besides being a great karate man, Funakoshi wrote a lot of poems, mostly about karate. And so when he signed these poems, he would sign it under his nickname, Shoto. Shoto translated means pine waves. And he got that name because many times when he left Azato's house or Aitoso's house, he would have to walk through these paths that would take him through these pine trees. And this was when Funakoshi would think about, writing poems or think about nature in itself. And the pine waves he thought was a fitting name to nickname himself for these poems. So in 1935 or 36, when his students erected the first dojo, they called it the Hall of Shoto, and thus the name Shotokan. Kan meaning building, Shoto meaning pine waves. The Hall of Shoto was developed in 1936. Unfortunately, it was destroyed during the war of 1945. But that's how Shotokan, and it wasn't Funakoshi, even in his autobiography, he's honored, but he's not. He still believes at that time that karate should be one. Karate-do, the way of the empty hand. However, Shotokan became a style, and it almost became Japanese. Obviously, its influence was in Okinawa.
Who else do we see on this video?
Oh, with the video of well, there are two, as you can see, there are many legends on this tape. You're going to see S.A. Obata, one of Funakoshi's senior students, who was at one time a member of the JKA, but then left. You're going to see Sensei Nakayama, who probably helped JKA or made JKA what it is today. There are people like Okazaki, who's here in the United States in Philadelphia, Nishiyama, who's out in California, Ianoida, who's out in England, Kanazawa, also out in England. A lot of these people, Megami, he's out in Louisiana. So there's many people that are in that film that are still alive today. Great.
David, can you tell us how Master Funakoshi popularized karate in Japan?
Okay. Upon the request of the Ministry of Education and the Emperor himself, Funakoshi had already did a demonstration in Japan in like 1917, returned to Okinawa, but then was asked to go back. So in 1922, Funakoshi set off for Japan to popularize karate. If you look at that time era, what was happening in Japan was judo had a good foothold, kendo was very, very popular, and karate was something very obscure. What Funakoshi did when he went over to Japan was he did a few demonstrations, was widely received, but nothing happened. Funakoshi had to take residence up at the Misajuka, a dormitory, which was a dormitory for Okinawan immigrants. And Funakoshi had a hard time trying to popularize karate. In fact, he lived so poorly that, he had to tell the cooks that, if you could give me something to eat, I would teach you karate. At best, at that time, he had maybe 10 students. So he had to work to clean up the place and take care of the mail just to survive in Japan. This is all taking place in 20. So he had a lot of dead time, but karate was always on his mind. So in 1922, he wrote a book, Rokyu Kempo. In this book, it's basically line drawings and Funakoshi's philosophy about karate, what it should be, and what kind of an attitude that you should have for it. And the book did very, very well. what happened was there was a big demand for it. Unfortunately, in 1923, a major earthquake happened in Japan. What it did was it destroyed the publishing house, and the book became like, it went off in obscurity. So now there was another demand to at least write another book. So 1925, 1926, in that era, Funakoshi wrote a second book called Tote Jitsu, or Rattan Karate Jitsu. And in that book, he uses a lot of photographs. And it's a little bit revised edition of the first one. That started to become very popular. But in that time frame, another major thing happened. The earthquake also did damage to the dormitory Funakoshi was staying at. There was a famous kendo master that was living at the time his name was Hiromichi or Hirado Nakayama. He heard that Funakoshi's dojo or dormitory was damaged. So he allowed Funakoshi to come and teach at his dojo. And this is a major thing that happened in Japan, because it happens all the time now, but martial arts back then were like, this is kendo and you just do kendo, this is judo, you just do judo, and karate. And this famous Nakayama invited Funakoshi to teach on the off times. And because of Nakayama's influence, if Nakayama is allowing this Okinawan to teach karate, then this gentleman must have something of value. And Funakoshi's students started to increase. And from that point, Funakoshi did another smart thing. He went and introduced karate to the universities. A lot of them claim, he taught here first, he taught there first. That's up there, how you look at it. But he got into the universities such as Keio, Hosei, Tokyo, and a number of them. And that's when karate started to really start to get popular. And Funakoshi would travel around to these universities at least once a week to see how practice came from. You're talking now in the 30s, when the Shotokan, getting back to when the Shotokan was developed, Funakoshi had 3 sons and a daughter. Funakoshi had a third son named Yoshitaka, they're called Hiko. And he was a very talented individual, a little bit bigger than his father and a little bit heavier, but a lot younger. At that time, you have to remember that, Japan had kendo as a sport and judo as a sport. Back in Okinawa, karate wasn't done as a sport. Karate was done as self-defense. So the mindset in Japan is competitive, especially amongst universities. And so what was happening was that Yoshitaka, being of that college age, he could see that karate was very dry the way Funakoshi was teaching him. A lot of kata, a lot of makiwara. So the son was coming up with innovations to introduce, instead of sanban kumite, nippon kumite, 3-point spine, 1-point spine, to make jinyu kumite or free spine, a little bit more interesting. The father allowed it to happen, but he never taught it. The style was very structured. For example, Funakoshi, in all his books or all his films that are available, you're never going to see Funakoshi doing a roundhouse kick. His karate was very, very simple. Front kick, side kick, that was basically it. But the son started to introduce the roundhouse kick, the back kick. And I guess Mr. Funakoshi allowed it to happen because he could see the interest of the students.
What is the basic difference, and does this film show the difference between Shotokan karate in its pioneer days and Shotokan karate of today?
Well, there's very small footage of Funakoshi, but what it does show is the basics, and it shows stance level. I think that Funakoshi believed that you could stand approximately shoulder level apart and be very, very strong if your focus was there. And if you look at modern JKA stances, they're a lot longer. One of the pluses of that is that your center of balance is lower to the ground. You are stronger. It's harder to do it. Your legs are longer, so you're deeper in your strength, your stance. So yes, there's some truth to the stability of the stance. The problem with the stance is that it's like physics. To get from point A to point B, you have to travel longer, and so therefore it cuts down on speed. They do practice speed drills, but I think Funakoshi's principle was stand naturally, make it focused, and you could still be as strong and fast. You don't have to get as deep. That's one of the differences.
In summary, on this videotape, is there anything that you would say is historical significance other than the footage on Funakoshi? On this videotape, can you sum up for the people who are watching, what are the things that they should be really watching for?
Okay, I think for people who are watching this tape that you can see that a lot of basics are done. A lot of basics. That people that are alive today and who are of high caliber spent a lot of time doing rising blocks or snap kicks over and over and over and over again. And I think if modern day people get bored with repetition and want to move on to other things, I don't know if that's good or bad, but you can see that these people spent a lot of time just training in the basics.